I imagine if you were the owner of this watch, you'd spend all day just staring at your timepiece, waiting for them to intersect. What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution. We're here in Saint Blaise doing part 2 of our visit with Jean-Marie Schaller, the CEO and owner of Louis Moinet. And today we're talking about cosmic art. What is cosmic art, Jean-Marie?
You see, we have two worlds inside Louis Moinet. We have mechanical wonders, such as the chronograph, purely mechanical. And we have cosmic art, which is also a mechanical world in which we insert pieces from the universe. Should they be meteorites? Should they be flown materials that were on board Apollo missions?
Like the Apollo Soyuz.
That's right.
And you also have these incredibly cool poetic expressions of time passing as well, with tourbillons floating through space. Can you tell me a little bit about the supermoon? What does that watch represent to you, and how do you use the meteorite material in these watches to create emotion?
Supermoon is a watch that comes in a limited edition, like all our creations. It has it's a watch that was also very difficult to craft. The dial itself is in 2 different layers, and you have these indexes that are like suspended in the air, creating some volume.
Right.
And underneath there are some engraving of the moon craters, decorated at 3 o'clock from a real piece from the moon, a moon meteorite that is encapsulated near the crown.
Amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, the imagery that you used as your inspiration dates all the way back to 1968 for the moon, am I right?
These were the first pictures taken from the moon from the Apollo missions.
Incredible. But if you look at it, the texture that has been created is incredibly painstaking. How do you inspire your craftsmen to create things like this?
You know, the desire to go beyond boundaries is what drives some people in this industry, thank God. And it's not about the money, it's about the technical feat. It's about doing things that have not been made before, and therefore creating new emotions. This is always the challenge. And sometimes we stop because we realize that we will not succeed, that we went the wrong way, and sometimes we go further and further and further until we reach the goal.
Well, I mean, in terms of a watch that's expressing all new emotions, we have to talk about the Astronef. Now, this was a watch that when I first set eyes on it, I was absolutely blown away by. I know the base movement, which is basically hidden just in the bottom of the case here, is a double-barreled. A movement that powers, I guess, this command tower. And then attached to the command tower are 2 tourbillons that are extended out into space. One of them is making a full rotation every 5 minutes in a clockwise motion. And then the other one is making a counterclockwise rotation every 10 minutes, which means that they intersect 18 times per hour, or every 3 minutes and 20 seconds, or 432 times a day. Is that correct?
It is, it is.
You've got these incredibly light tourbillons, each one of which only weighs 0.24 grams. And they're perfectly balanced, and they're creating this extraordinary kind of poetic expression of time. I mean, how did the concept for this come up?
This is a watch that took 3 years to master, because there are 3 world premieres. 2 tourbillons rotating at 2 different speeds, at different heights, in 2 different directions. So it was never made before. It has been made now for 2 creations of ours, Astronef and the Space Revolution. And the idea was to create something which is a great show on your wrist. Again, this is in most of the cases what we want to achieve, is to have a living object on the wrist. This watch, as you said, the 2 tourbillons rotate very quickly, and they meet every 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Which means if you look at the watch now, or in 20 seconds, you'll have a different watch on your wrist.
It's so cool. You can see them almost about to overlap right now, and it's actually really like engaging. Like I imagine if you were the owner of this watch, you'd spend all day just staring at your timepiece, waiting for them to intersect. There's two other things that I think are really cool about this watch. The first is the extensive use of sapphire crystal for the case, which we saw, of course, in the Memoris and also in the Time to Race, but here brought to a whole new extreme, where almost the entirety of the case is made out of sapphire crystal. Tell me a little bit about that adventure and why that was so important to be able to visualize this watch so that you can see the movement from every angle.
To use crystal with sapphire to have a panoramic view, so you can see it just as you do it now, from different angles, and you can admire the movement of these two tourbillons moving inside, and also the counterweights, and also the tourbillons rotate on themselves, so you have 6 animated elements inside the watch that you can admire.
Incredible. And you mentioned the counterweights, so I want to transition from that to the space revolution, where the counterweights take the form of 2 spaceships, right? So you have not just the tourbillons intersecting every 3 minutes and 20 seconds, but you've got the spaceships also intersecting every 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And if I'm not mistaken, the tourbillons, while they weigh 0.24 grams, each of the spaceships only weighs 0.5 grams as well, and it's micro sculpted in titanium.
Yeah, it's less than 0.5 grams.
Is it?
Yeah, slightly less.
But it's incredible to behold, and the level of detail in the spaceships in particular is just mind-blowing. This is a pièce unique. Tell me about this watch.
It is a pièce unique because the dial is hand guilloché with a beautiful blue color, so it gives a lot of contrast to the tourbillons and to the spaceship.
It's magnificent. And I love how both of the cages have like different kind of sci-fi invoked themes as well for the 2 tourbillons. One other thing that we should talk about is, of course, the gear selector for this. So you have a gear selector in the back where in this position you are able to wind the watch, and if you switch it to the bottom position, you're able to set the hands. And that's actually remarkable because that brings us to the next subject, which is Space One, which also features a gear selector. Tell me about this watch. Wait, this is under embargo, so when will this watch be presented?
You have the first one to see it.
Okay.
It reached our workshop this morning.
Amazing. So the cool thing about this watch obviously is it's a chronograph, but it also tells you which function you're engaging with this little gear selector mode down here, which is super fun because you have this great animation in addition to it being a precision device. What was the motivation behind Space One?
You have here a watch which is a combination of art and technology.
Right.
You have this indication of the chronograph function that you have started. You have a date, you have a counters, and you have a beautiful dial.
Which also features meteorite as well.
It does, yes, inside the counters. It's a meteorite that is very rare, that has been found in China. It's called Armenti. And it is inserted into the counters, and in the center it is complemented by rubies.
So both of the hands for the counters are mounted in these rubies in the center, and the pieces of meteorite surround them. And it's amazing to see how all of the different codes of Louis Moinet come together. You know, you've got the chronograph, you've got the meteorite, you've got this cosmic art dimension to it, but you've got the precision dimension as well. So I think now after this trip, I have a real understanding and respect for what you created with Louis Moinet. Jean-Marie, brilliant job, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's mine. Cheers.